learning how to identify notes on the keyboard. So, as you can see in the overhead view, I have a HAL Leonard standard keyboard guide, which is super useful. You can lay it in front of your keys, or you can actually slot it in behind the keys so it's sitting up. Some people also like to use stickers, and they actually stick them on the keys, which is really useful while you're learning. But I also like having something that I can transport and take to lessons if you need some support. So if you don't know where your stickers are, don't worry, because we're about to go through where to put them if that is where you're at. So if we are looking at the keyboard, we are only going to be looking at identifying the white notes just for today. And if you do have a keyboard guide, I want us to ignore this notation or these symbols that we have above here. We're not going to be looking at that just yet. We're just going to be looking at the letters, because all of these notes have letters that apply to them. So I'm going to introduce the idea that we're learning anchor notes as a way to identify what all the other rest of the notes are on the keyboard. So in music, instead of starting at A, which would be really lovely and useful and make sense, we don't. We start at C, and we're going to get into this later, but the key of C major is really important in music. It's the simplest one to start with, which is why a lot of stuff is centered around C, especially when we're learning. So you're going to have to bear with me, and we're starting with C today rather than A. So if you can see in the middle of your keyboard, I've lined up my keyboard guide to match correctly, and this is what we call our middle C. And I want us to just really check in with where this is at. So we've got 2 black notes, and then it's on the left-hand side. As you can see, the piano is a series of repeating notes and patterns. So we've got 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes. So having just looked at what this middle C is, we can assume correctly that if we go to the next 2 black notes that we can see up here, on the left-hand side, this is also going to be a C. As you can see, this matches up on the keyboard guide. So let's play that. So we've got middle C, sounds great. And then we've got our next C, which we can see 2 black notes. Yep, that's a C on the left. What about if we keep going up? 2 black notes, left-hand side. Yep, it's a C. 2 black notes, left-hand side, it's a C. And if you're working with a full keyboard like this is, there's one more at the top there. Let's do that the opposite way down to the bass, the lower version of the piano, down on the left-hand side, your right-hand side. So we've got our middle C, which we've already identified. Same thing, so to the left, we see the next series, it's 2 black notes, left-hand side. It's a C, 2 black notes, left-hand side, 2 black notes, left-hand side, and that's our last one down there. So you could challenge yourself and actually remove your keyboard guide and just sort of check in with that knowledge. So 2 black notes, on the left-hand side is our C. That one at the top's a little harder to identify, but we'll get used to that one. Coming back down the other way. Fabulous, so we already know our first anchor note, and especially this middle C is quite useful for us to really remember and sort of get a bit of a image of a photographic memory of, because that's just useful for us to match up with any keyboard guide or stickers that we're working with. So if you do have stickers, you can now put them on all of those C's. Now, I said before we start with C, not A, but let's just have a little look at how things repeat on the piano. So we've got A here, as you can see on the keyboard guide. So we know where C is. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we repeat. So I think a really useful thing for beginner pianists is to have another anchor note at the other end of the sequence. So in this case, it's going to be G. So let's do the exact same process, except we're now looking at what does G look like on the keyboard. So we've got 3 black notes, and G kind of sits on the left-hand side on the inside of them. So I'm just going to play that, and I'm going to repeat the process of what I did for middle C. So you can see the next series of 3 black notes. There's that G on the left-hand side slightly. I'm just going to keep going 3 black notes, 3 black notes. Back to the original one. Let's go the opposite way. 3 black notes, 3 black notes, 3 black notes, and that's the last one down there. Now, I think it's really useful having an idea of sort of a note in the middle of the sequence and a note towards the end of the sequence, because then we can use it to anchor ourselves and figure out what the other notes are with our knowledge of the alphabet. So if we're looking at C, which we now know very, very well. What comes before C in the alphabet? B. So let's go to the note on the left-hand side. We've assumed correctly that's a B. And then the note before B is A, so we're going to go down one more. A. Now if I go to the next note, that's the next sequence. So we're back at G, which we already have identified as an anchor note. So that's where the sequence, this is sort of where it restarts. Let's go the opposite way. Let's go back to our lovely middle C, which we know and love so well. So after C comes D, so we're moving the opposite way in the alphabet, the opposite way on the keyboard. E, F, and now back to G. The whole thing repeats again. So it's just really nice having these two anchor notes of C and G on the keyboard. And when we don't have this in front of us, it takes a second, but as you're learning, it's just useful to have these two anchors. And then maybe as we get more confident, we start to really familiarize ourselves with what E looks like on the keyboard, or what D looks like, or F looks like. So it's just really useful to have those anchor notes to start with as a base of knowing where our white notes are and what they symbolize. Hope that was helpful. Looking forward to teaching you next, which is treble clef. Love you.